It's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
Welcome to Undead Live, reporting from the front lines of the zombie apocalypse. We have your back morning, noon, and night, whether you're dead, undead, recently deceased, or fully alive. We have the apocalypse covered. And today we have a very, very special show. And I have my co-host Liz Grumbach here with me today. Liz, how are you today?
I am good. I'm surviving. I'm surviving the apocalypse today. How about you?
I'm surviving and I'm ready to thrive with this amazing show we have coming up.
Oh,
I mean, getting the chance to take a deep dive on conspiracy theories, to me, it's both frightening and fascinating and always fun. I guess, are those the 3 F's for today?
Oh, I love that. There's also the F word, which maybe we'll say a little bit when we're talking about conspiracy theories today. But I have to ask, so I have this confession about a conspiracy theory that I believed in for a very long time in my life. And do you have any of those, Athena?
Conspiracy theories I believed in? No, but I can't wait to hear yours. Okay, how long ago was this though, Liz?
Okay, so let's just say that I believed it way too long, maybe through college, that I really thought that we didn't go to the moon, Athena, for a really long time. I thought we didn't go to the moon, and I'm only 99% sure right now that we actually did go to the moon, which is so embarrassing, and it's Channel Z canon now. But I just had to say that conspiracy theories are hard because they're so convincing, especially to folks that don't know how to sift through information, right?
How did it start for you?
Okay, so I don't know if anyone out there saw the sci-fi documentary about how we did not go to the moon. I only found out years afterwards that it was a mockumentary, and I just thought for a really long time that we didn't go to the moon because of that. And it's just wow. Jason, I absolutely agree. Yes, he is smiling.
It does bring up a really good point, though, that sometimes when people are, making satire, if they don't realize it could be interpreted as real, then it can go off in its own direction. I mean, in some ways, when I think about what makes conspiracy theories so compelling, it's because they're great stories often. And I'm completely wildly speculating here, but I have a feeling that a lot of that shit was people are just oh, haha, here's a funny story. And then people are oh, that's funny. And then enough people are oh, that's funny, that's interesting. And then they're oh, you believe that? Do we believe that?
Do we?
Oh, yeah, I guess we do.
I guess we all believe it now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my speculation, but we've got some experts today who can tell us a little bit more.
I'm so excited to introduce some of our experts today, and I think bringing in our first expert is a good idea. But before, I do want to say that if you are watching this today, please make sure to comment. Tell us what your conspiracy theory is, right? It's probably not as embarrassing as mine. And while you're down there, smash that like button, just like you'd smash a zombie in the face, or smash teenage me that believed in not going to the moon. But let's bring on our first guest. So I would love to introduce Dr. Sarah Florini. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Dr. Florini is an expert in media studies and algorithmic culture. You were one of the first people to publish on Black Twitter and Black podcasting, from what I hear. And we're here to talk about conspiracy theories and maybe some harm reduction. And I think we have a really, really interesting question here from Ms. Elkazi that might start that conversation. So, stuck on the conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. And Dr. Kone is saying the government putting drugs into Black communities, that sounds like a conspiracy, right? But it's true. So Sarah, how are you feeling about kind of infectious media content?
Well, this is why conspiracy theories, misinformation, disinformation is really, really powerful. Not only is it a good story, but also it resonates with things that we know to be true. Governments do shady stuff. And particularly if you're Black or Indigenous or queer or any other kind of marginalized population who has been at the receiving end of this, it doesn't sound far out that these things would be true, right? So, and sometimes they turn out to be, sometimes they turn out to be partially true. If it sounded completely illogical, people wouldn't believe it.
Yep. And I think that's right. And I think that this quote from Mad Men, thank you so much, Neil. People are so desperate to be told what to do. They'll listen to anyone. And I listen to mockumentaries, right? But I also think that people look to authority, right? And they look to authority in the wrong places sometimes.
Yeah, well, and this also kind of is like the, zombification issue, right? Like sometimes people want to not have to make the decisions. They want someone or something to tell them what is and isn't true and what they should or shouldn't do. And there's something like almost strangely comforting in that sometimes, but can lead to frightening dynamics as well.
And also just having a villain to point to, right, is sometimes really comforting in a complicated and chaotic world, right? And when the villain often turns out to be the villain, right? When the US government or whomever frequently has been doing this kind of shady stuff, really harmful things, it's not hard to believe that, throw one more on the pile.
And I think so, I think maybe it's time to bring on our next guest, because one of the ways in which this kind of information, right, gets spread is through social media. And we're here today to talk a little bit about TikTok. And as someone that's been on TikTok obsessively since the beginning of the pandemic, like I think I spend about 20 minutes a day at least on TikTok. I don't know about y'all. I think that a lot of people are getting their information right now, and that information might be flawed from social media content. So I would love to bring on our next expert guest, TX Watson. TX, it's so good to see you.
Hi, it's great to see you too.
Hi. So TX makes informational TikToks about philosophy and psychology and language. You also research TikTok as a platform for the Online Creators Association, TOCA, which is an amazing organization that everyone should check out. And you help content creators better understand the platform that they work on. And it's so good to have you here today, TX. I know we're going to go really quickly to a clip, but I want to ask you about conspiracy theories and TikTok. So like, are conspiracy theories being spread on TikTok?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on any platform, on any media platform that has sharing structures that has the potential for virality, you're going to see conspiracy theories starting to spread. And one of the big things that I think that I want to talk about today that I think a lot of people aren't comfortable accepting is that the viral potential of an idea is not distinct from what the idea itself is. Like the kind of conspiracy theories that go viral on TikTok or go viral anywhere, they do because the idea itself motivates people to share it, motivates people to pay attention to it, not because the person who made that video happens to be good at making TikToks.
Yeah, it's this whole the science of memes. Like memes originally, like that idea comes from Richard Dawkins, who came up with, a lot of very sort of popularizable ideas around evolutionary biology. But I mean, basically he was saying memes are these units of information that are good at jumping from brain to brain.
Yeah,
and they've become something else. Like when you say meme now, people think, oh, you mean like, the thing that you spread on the internet. But really, it's just an idea that kind of has its own fitness function, we would say, as evolutionary biologists, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly. It's the idea that the thing that makes an idea successful is not how true it is, how accurately it reflects reality, or how effectively it serves the interests of the people who believe it. It's just how good it is at getting itself copied.
Yeah.
Well, and if I can jump in, one of the things that internet researchers have found when it comes to memes is that two big factors play. High arousal emotions, generally evoking an intense emotion in you, is more likely to make you share it and perpetuate it, which connects back to this idea of things that we already sort of injustices that we already believe in. And then also the format, the more that it is accessible and able for you to participate in and play with and remix and adapt also makes it spread. And so that TikTok is the perfect platform for that.
It's funny because like that really does tie in with a lot of things with biological evolution, right? Like recombination is such a powerful way to make like, you know, new adaptations, right? If you can like combine this thing that's good and then this other thing that's good and put them in the same organism, like maybe that organism is going to do really well. Maybe it won't, but maybe it'll do super well and outperform everything else. So in a lot of ways, these things that we see with culture and with memes, like recapitulate a lot of things with biological evolution, you know, like what makes it possible for things to come together and then spread like mad. Recombination. So.
That sounds a lot like, well, so I know we're going to go to a clip, but it's one of the things I was so interested to talk about with y'all today, because like TikTok, it just seems like the way that people use sound on TikTok, right? The way that people remix video, they duet things, etc. They stitch things, like all of those are functions that TikTok has made it easier for ideas to be spread and take up. Right. And it's a new kind of social media is what I believe. But I might come back to that in a moment after we look at this clip from Abby Richards, this short TikTok from Abby Richards.
Okay, so like a year ago, I drew an upside down triangle and it broke the internet. Basically, I sorted conspiracy theories from very real to very fake and dangerous. It looked like this. But it's been a year, and a lot's gone down. There was an attempted coup. People poisoned themselves with horse paste, and for some reason, some people still think that the earth is flat. But on the bright side, Britney is free now. So I've updated the conspiracy chart, and we're going to do a whole ass series on it. Look, the holidays are coming up, and you might have to see family who believe in reptilian-human hybrids, or that children are being trafficked in secret tunnels under Disney World. It's important to understand that those aren't just fun theories. They promote hatred and cause real-world harm, and it might be time to talk to your family about them. I'll help. I'll provide resources. I'm going to do a video for each section of the chart, but basically it moves from grounded in reality up to detached from reality.
So I really wanted to show this clip because it really shows how there are different kinds of conspiracies, right? You can be grounded in reality, and I might bring up this conspiracy funnel again really quick. So this conspiracy chart from Abby Richards, we have these theories that are grounded in reality, and then all the way up to detached from reality. And I really recommend that y'all seek out Abby Richards' work on TikTok, because we go from things like that we believe probably did happen. We have proof that Watergate happened, right? And then things that are, above the speculation line. So things like UFOs. And then we get further and further up where we can start, poking holes in these conspiracies. So I would love to maybe bring on one of our guests to talk about, what about this chart helps us, right? Poke holes, right? To figure out why we need to go to holidays and argue with our families, which I definitely did over Christmas. Thanks to Abby.
Well, I think that one of the things that we need to think about is that conspiracy theories and conspiracies themselves have always been around. But when you combine that with algorithmic culture, which is algorithmically curated, not just content, but relationships, right? Keep in mind on social media platforms, they will recommend, oh, you might know this person. You might want to connect with this person. You might want to follow this person. So it's not only curating the information we get, but the folks that we are interacting with and getting information from our social networks. And that does two really powerful things. One is that the algorithm can move us through the upwards in the triangle, right? By serving us increasingly extreme content, which we have data to show that it does. And the other is the more that we are connected to people who believe these things, the more they kind of become normalized. Right. And it's a matter of social contagion and conformity that people start to feel like, oh, well, everybody believes this.
I want to pull in this question from Pam because I think it's a really important thing for us to talk about is, why is it that either people seem to need conspiracy theories or just that they are receptive to those conspiracy theories, if they're presented.
I have an opinion on this.
Yes.
I want to make it clear that I am not saying that all ideas are equivalently legitimate or equivalently defensible, but there is not a like categorical difference between beliefs about the world that are true and beliefs about the world that are false. We all have organizing assumptions that go into how we interpret everything in the world, and how, especially how we interpret things that are too complicated for us to understand in their complete detail. And some of these are perfectly reasonable assumptions that it's easy to make conspiracy theories out of by leaning too heavily on the idea that they are always the case, like the idea that corporations act against the interest of like human well-being in America. Like, we know that's true. We know that like the oil companies concealed information about global climate change, but it is sometimes easy to go too far in that assumption. One thing we were talking about before we got on was the birds work for the bourgeoisie meme, which is like it's like a joke conspiracy, but like it leans into the idea that like literally I feel like birds act weird, and that's probably because capitalism.
Mm-hmm. And I think too that there's this we know we're being watched, right? And we all know, like we all have Amazon devices. I have an iPhone, right? I know I'm being listened to. We joke a lot about, the CIA agent that reads my texts, but they do, right? But thinking that maybe it's actually the birds, the robot birds that are spying on me is a lot easier for me to accept in some ways, because it's hilarious than knowing that I'm being surveilled.
Yeah, and the comment you just brought up, Jason's point that, and I think somebody else earlier also mentioned this, that a lot of the most toxic conspiracy theories are rooted in anti-Semitism and a belief that Jewish people control like the global economic and political systems, and that would be an example. That's the reason that I like wanted to specify, like, just because there's no like categorical difference between understanding the world in terms of corporate power and understanding the world in terms of religious power doesn't mean that it is equivalent in truth value to say that corporations have a lot of influence and to say that Jewish people are controlling our economic system. Like, those are not the same claim. They're not like equivalent in defensibility, but they are. I do think that it's important to recognize that there's no difference in the way that our brains use those tools as a way of trying to interpret reality. So like it's impossible to not have theories about the way the world works. It's just some people's theories are wrong and dangerous.
I think that's so important too, right? Is the danger part, the violent part. And I love this comment from Robert. It seems the further detached from reality these theories gets, the more likely violent rhetoric will come from those within them. And that's the danger. That's the harm that Abby talks about. That's the harm that you're talking about, TX, right? And I wonder, Sarah, what other examples of this have happened? But right, because we know that conspiracy theories have harmed people throughout history.
Yeah. So, I mean, Abby Richards in a lot of her work makes the point that, all conspiracy roads lead to anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is very intertwined. It's the opposite side of the white supremacy coin, right? So for a lot of the theory of white supremacy, that white people are inherently, non-Jewish white people are inherently superior, is, we're inherently superior. And, all of these brown people, they're just so unevolved and savage and whatever horrible adjectives people apply. That the question then becomes, so then why are they dangerous to whiteness if white people are so superior? And that's where the villain of the Jews comes in, right? The Jews are not inferior, but evil. And they're the evil cabal that is moving all of the pieces around and using the inferior races as a threat to whiteness. And so as soon as you can put people in the mindset of like, there is some shadowy entity that is moving you around, and then you just take in, the anti-Semitic bias that we're all kind of steeped in from living in society, it doesn't take long for an algorithm to nudge you from one conspiracy theory to the next.
This whole thing just makes my skin crawl. It's like,
Absolutely.
oh, I mean, like, I feel like the way that you've just articulated it, it's like, it's almost like clinical in like this, and then it's just like what it means is just, I mean, it's terrifying, really.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that white supremacists do actively recruit among conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theorist communities. So like it is easy once you've got somebody who's in a place of believing that there is a small group of very powerful entities controlling everything to persuade them that there is better evidence for that group being a group of people who demonstrably exists than a group of people who does not demonstrably exist, which is why it's easy to get people who believe in lizard people controlling everything to shift that to believing Jewish people control everything. I think the fact that white supremacists actively recruit in those spaces is important because it's something like we and Sarah, you pointed out like algorithms can nudge people in that direction, but like white supremacists do a lot of work to make sure that those pathways in the algorithm exist and that there are places for that person to get drawn into. Like they will put work into creating content at like multiple different tiers of anti-Semitism so that a person can move through a space of increasing radicalization. This is a thing that we know they do on purpose. Like they talk about it in their magazines.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I would add, and it comes from places that you wouldn't expect. Like there is a really well demonstrated sort of wellness culture to white supremacy pipeline, sort of the anti-vax, anti-Western medicine holism to white supremacist pipeline. And there's an active recruitment there. And if you can sort of get people to accept some of the premises that underlie white supremacy without making it obvious that that's what you're doing. So a lot of what is underlies wellness culture, like obsession with strong, healthy, clean, pure bodies. It sort of frames the body in this very white supremacist way. And so if you can get people to buy into that value system, then they become more receptive and you just nudge and nudge and nudge. And so you see this as a recruiting tactic in all different kinds of places. It's like, oh, if you like with incels, oh, if you're angry at women, could I interest you in some anti-trans rhetoric? And if you don't like trans people, have you heard about Black folks? And then you just kind of keep being moved.
Yeah. Well, and then if you overlay this with just, sort of what we know from social psychology research about how you only need to give people the like smallest hint of like, this is our group and that's that other group over there. There's this idea of this minimal group paradigm, like, oh, these people, overestimate the number of dots and we underestimate. And that's enough for people to be nicer to the people who are in their same group. So, we are just so sensitive to any signals of groupishness just across the board that, when you layer it with all of these other dimensions, it becomes such a powerful way to manipulate people.
And I'll just point out real quick to highlight, right, what TX and Sarah and Athena have all said is that and these tactics are known and being used by white supremacists and by governments. And we can talk about that a little bit, but I'll just pop it up really quickly. We know, right? And I think it was mentioned before, we know that Russia targeted Black US voters in 2016. We know that this happened. We maybe should talk about it a little bit more because these tactics are known and being used by and circulated. There is literally a white supremacist handbook. They know how algorithms work. They understand algorithmic culture. They understand memes. They understand psychology. And we need to understand it too. So that we can understand how we're being manipulated.
I really want to speak on this because Dr. Kevin Winstead, who is a postdoc at Penn State right now, said one of the most revealing, like one of those brilliant things to me I've heard in a long time, which is the best Black studies program in the world is in the Kremlin. To be able to target Black American populations, and that this is something that they've been doing. They did it in the mid-20th century. It was part of the Cold War, trying to exacerbate existing racial tensions in the US. And so they did it during the 2016 election. They're doing it now around Ukraine. And what happens is they take things that are real, right? I don't know if folks have been following that there was a problem. Ukrainian soldiers were stopping international students from Africa at the border and being, they were being violent with them, pushing them and then those kinds of things. That's true. That happened. And there is anti-Blackness in Ukraine. But as soon as that happened, that got pushed out into all kinds of Black social media networks by accounts that if you took a little bit of time to see that really was, that it was probably not real people, and pushed it out with well, I don't see why we care about the Ukraine. This is just this racist nation. They really are Nazis, like Putin is saying. So it's taking something that is real and that happens to folks, and then trying to use it to then shift people's position in a favorable way to Russia.
And I want to say, I know TX, you had some thoughts too, right? And I think that this conversation is just so important.
I wanted to respond to Dave's comment, which was up on the screen a minute ago. I think it's like this definitely happens, but it's also this attitude that organizations will hire agent provocateurs to come in and artificially place like awful beliefs in a community. A lot of communities use that belief to disavow problems within that community. And one of the things that's really common for corporations to do is just to arrange for the existing racist, anti-Semitic, sexist, homophobic sentiments in a community to be a bigger problem. One great example of this is the fact that Whole Foods keeps a heat map of unionization risk in all of their locations across the country. And one of their major indicators for like high risk of unionization is racial homogeneity. Like if a lot of the people in the workplace are of the same ethnic identity, they're a lot more likely to get along with each other enough to like talk to each other outside of work, which is a really high union risk. So they will use diversification efforts to create isolating and alienating workplaces where employees don't want to talk to each other because the employees are racist in many cases.
And this has come up a lot during this episode, and I think that maybe this is something to talk about. You know, as we begin to wrap, is there are conspiracies and there are conspiracy theories, but what do we mean by theory, right? What happens when a conspiracy is true?
Yeah, right. Because when we talk about theories in science, like a theory doesn't mean it's untrue. Like, for example, evolutionary theory, it's a theory, but it's something that, you know, we know to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I was saying right before the call that I would really love for us to have like a distinction between like conspiracy theory and conspiracy hypothesis, where like the hypothesis is a specific claim about something, like JFK was assassinated by the government, or like the Titanic never sank. And a conspiracy theory is an overarching framework that seeks to explain many conspiracy hypotheses or observations. And anti-Semitism would be an example of a conspiracy theory in that case. The belief in like an organized new world order trying to put control of the world in the hands of the Jewish people. Gravity is only a theory, therefore the earth is flat.
Yeah. Can I introduce one other piece of lingo that I would like to put out there, which is meta conspiracy theory? Like, for example, I think that a lot of conspiracy theories are a conspiracy theory to divide us. You know, it's like a conspiracy, like conspiracy theories, like it's a conspiracy. Like someone is behind there, like trying to mess with us.
It occurred to me just now, probably at too late, at a minute to the show ends, that what we're describing here as conspiracy theory as opposed to conspiracy hypothesis is basically the postmodernist idea of meta-narrative. The idea of like an organizing premise that shapes your understanding of every aspect of the world. So like religions are meta-narratives, capitalism is a meta-narrative, Marxism would be a meta-narrative, anti-Semitism, white supremacy would be a meta-narrative. And these are things that people use to inform every observation they make about reality. And I think personally, I am agree with the postmodernist argument that like having any single meta-narrative and using it to answer all of the questions in your life is going to lead to problems.
Especially if the meta narrative you believe in is that we all are living in a simulation, which I have is another conspiracy that is very attractive to me. And I think with that, like maybe some just like final quick thoughts from y'all, because this has been so helpful for me to think through just the way I move through the world, but also the way that I watch TikToks. But so what kind of tips and tactics would you say to our audience today? Like, how do you resist becoming a TikTok zombie, right? How do you resist becoming zombified by the TikToks that you watch that may or may not be based in conspiracy? Any quick thoughts?
I think it's important to take care to always be open to de-radicalization, always be ready to hear that you were wrong to have shared something, wrong to have agreed with an idea. It's really easy to get radicalized because people are shaming you for having thought something. And like it's hard because people mostly tell other people that they're wrong on the internet by making fun of them, and like that's not a good way to communicate that somebody should change their mind about something. That's a good way to push them to only be willing to talk to other people who agree with them on that point. But if you can like try to, I guess, like extend grace to the people who suck at communicating their de-radicalization points, and be the bigger person and listen to what they're saying, not the way they're saying it, you will be much more able to hear whether and when the ideas you've accepted actually are defensible, actually have reasonable evidence backing them up, versus when they only make sense if you very carefully balance all of the information you have so that nothing makes you look at it from the wrong angle.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say triangulate with the information you have. Look, I'm a media studies professor, film and media studies professor, so I have lots of critiques of media corporations, but you know, get information from journalists you respect, that may be journalist by journalist, and not necessarily specific entities. And then triangulate that with information that you got from independent journalists, with what you're seeing on social media. If you're only seeing something in one place, or if the thing that you're seeing is different than what's being reported elsewhere, it's easy to think like, oh, that's because they're trying to suppress this. And they might be. You know, things get suppressed all of the time. Or always be open to the or.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was amazing. Athena.
Right. It's this idea that like any, hypothesis that you have, if it's not falsifiable, then you kind of need to like hands off with it, right? Like if there's an answer for why this, why that, why this experiment didn't work to test your hypothesis, if you have an explanation for any possibility that, would come out of testing your hypothesis, then you have not properly articulated your hypothesis.
Also, really okay to not have an opinion about something.
Mm-hmm. Extremely okay. Like, if you aren't personally capable of intervening in a situation, it's fine for you to not get like breaking news updates about it. Like, I have very little idea of what's going on in the Ukraine right now because I don't need to be trying to sift through what's conspiracy theory and what's actually happening. I'm not there, and I don't have access to any levers of power that would allow me to intervene in the situation. So like, it's not. It's better for me to not be trying to stay up to date, trying to be a source of information, and potentially, probably likely spreading misinformation because I'm not competent to sift through it, is better for me to just like be in the dark or be quiet about the things I have heard.
Yeah. And I love that there's this, and I love ending on this for our audience, that there's a difference between being informed and actively possibly participating in misinforming other people. And I, and also it's okay for you to go take a nap, right? You don't have to be on Twitter or TikTok all of the time. So I think that's what I would say. And I just want to say
TikTok would beg to differ, but yeah, you were correct.
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to say thank you to our guests so much. TX, Sarah, I feel like this conversation was very needed right now. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
Great to meet
Russia
you,
had great
Sarah.
timing and scheduling for this show.
Yeah, they did. It's kind of like they know everything. So then maybe they knew. So thank you both. And I will just say we're going to be actually taking a break on Channel Z next week to fight the spring break zombie hordes, but we will be back on March 21st with our an episode of Zombie History. So please be sure to click on the subscribe button for Zombified Media, whether you're on Facebook or you are on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and comment below, especially if you have anything that you want to see us talk about on Channel Z, or if you have any conspiracy theories that are embarrassing and or you want to talk out with us. We'll see you in the comments. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you, Liz. This was just such an awesome show. And I mean, it has really given me a new way of thinking about, what I see on TikTok. I'm going to be a lot more aware from this point forward.
Yeah. Theories versus hypotheses. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody for joining us today on this edition of Undead Live. Now, remember, the best way to protect your brains in the zombie apocalypse is to share them. Don't forget to join us next time here on Undead Live, where we got the apocalypse covered.
And if the whole world says that we're crazy,